Hello, Flat Earth researchers, debaters, and debunkers. These famous words by Gandhi apply to any situation where the general population is faced with new ideas, new concepts that go against what is considered the norm or accepted as general knowledge. First, they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. And these words are just an observation of human nature, the steps any one of us go through as individuals or a collective when new ideas come about. Of course, Flat Earth isn't really a new idea. It existed for millennia, as far as we know. The globe Earth is a new idea. It's only been around for a couple of generations, really, as far as we can tell. But of course it's being considered as a new idea now because it's prolific across the internet and, of course, especially on YouTube. So with that, we have a brigade of anti-flat earthers that are clubbing together and going through this process that we can all see. Our human nature is being laid bare for all to see. Now, of course, any flat earther or anyone who realizes that we're not on a spinning globe probably ignored flat earth to start with. It was just something that was not really part of our worldview, something we didn't know anything about, really, apart from what we might have been told in school about those people in ancient times were silly because they thought they'd fall off the edge of the earth when boats went over the horizon. And those first explorers were considered brave because they ignored this idea that a ship going off over the horizon is supposedly going to fall off the edge of the earth. So where are we now in this whole thing? We have people as individuals who have ignored it, and we have the collective that has ignored it. And now we have people laughing, ridiculing flat earthers, making fun, making hit piece videos, and of course fighting the flat earth. And then we are supposed to win. But this isn't, this idea of winning is not like a smackdown or a contest or a competition. This isn't what winning is to a flat earther. It's not that flat earthers are trying to get people to join their cult. Because all we're trying to do is liberate people from the single-minded religious notion that we live on a spinning ball earth. So where do you start this process of getting to becoming a flat earther, or realizing that we're not on a spinning ball, or realizing that as far as we can tell the earth is flat and motionless? Any truth seeker has to examine all those things that have contributed to what we consider knowledge, our worldview. This can't be done unless we leave our comfort zone, unless we start questioning ourselves, first of all, looking at our own human nature and what makes us. It's very easy to look at other people and point the finger and see that they are different to us. Often they are the same, they display the same human characteristics, but we don't see that in ourselves. And it's not until we start examining ourselves and the conditioning we go through in our different respective cultures that we can start to really understand our human nature. If we look at what might go on in a 2-year-old's mind, for example, they're starting to learn the language of their parents. They're starting to become very familiar with the world around them. And something like the sun or the moon become something they recognize. And there might not be any much thought beyond that. They become familiar. They become part of the surroundings. And they become as as they are just the same as our parents, the things around us. They are just part of our world. But then, as time goes by, then we are given more information about the world around us. Of course, we look at things from our own perspective, but we rely on what we're told. We read books, we see illustrations, and so astronauts and flying to the moon and rockets and bouncing around on the moon become very much ingrained in our idea of reality. It's just one of those things that's part of our worldview. An astronaut is a job like a teacher, like a mechanic, a waiter. It's just accepted. And we're given pictures, and we just understand that this is just going to the moon is something people do, and we know about it. And of course, we see the globe Earth, everywhere, every day, on TV, in books. We hear the word. Everyone just accepts that we live on a globe. Just becomes part of our reality. Just like we see a cat or a dog, whether it's a real one or an image or a statue or a toy. These things become very quickly solidified in our mind's eye as to what they are. And so, naturally, we would ignore anything that goes against this knowledge that we've built up for years, since our formative years. Why would it be any different? How could it be any different? So it's ignored, and it's laughed at. So what about these people who are spending so much time and energy dedicating a significant part of their lives to fighting the flat earth, being anti-flat? Why are they not ignoring it anymore? Why are they making a huge effort to ridicule it and fight it? Because it's part of the process. Eventually, they will start to realize that the assumptions they have about flat earthers are just that. They might not yet realize how much research, how many and how many experiments, and how much effort has been done by individuals and collectives to really try and properly establish whether we are on a globe or not. That's the first thing, isn't it, that you go through. Well, these anti-flat earthers that we see at the moment that are laughing and fighting the flat earth, they haven't even got to that stage yet where they're actually questioning it. They still can't believe that it's something that people would question. And in their minds, all this is just general knowledge that the flat earther has ignored. But they haven't yet properly looked into all the things that the flat earthers have looked at. And you'll see it in some of these, over time, you'll see that these anti-flat earthers will start to go beyond the ridicule, and they will start to pose the questions that the flat earthers already posed amongst themselves, to each other, and to the authorities, to see if they could get any clear answers. And then they will realize, bit by bit, that there are no solid answers. All we have really is this belief that people went to the moon. And of course, that would appear to solidify the science. You know, if we weren't on a globe, then they wouldn't have been able to get there. But it appears that they have. Of course, a lot of people who realize that we're on a flat Earth spent many, many years before then going through all kinds of other conspiracy theories, as it were, seeking truth, basically. And in order to do that, of course, you have to look at what other people are saying, weigh it up, and evaluate it, and see what makes sense, see what doesn't make sense. But you at least have to look at it, and you have to listen to what people have to say, the reasons they might believe something is a certain way. And you can make your own evaluation on it. But you can't make a true evaluation until you listen. So as long as people are ignoring the flat earth and laughing at it, or any other so-called conspiracy theory, then they're not making any kind of progress whatsoever. Of course, those people with a vested interest in keeping the globe alive will do so. They may well instinctively know that there are questions to be asked that may not have been answered. But nevertheless, they will defend it. But of course, the truth seeker knows that this whole idea of fighting and then winning is not something. It's an internal process as well. We laughed at it to start with, and then we had to fight with our own mind, with our own ego. And this is a process that can take a long, long time. It might be something that was started many years ago. Contemplation, reflection, trying to get a better understanding of who we are as humans. So there is this internal struggle, and you know what? Some people are more afraid of challenging their beliefs than they are of death. You think about that. People are more scared to to consider that they might have been wrong about something than they are of death. They would rather die defending a belief, a mindset, than actually come to terms with the fact that they lived a lie. This is how much resistance an individual will put up to their own, or the ego will put up to the individual. It will fight to the death, because when you seek truth, you are fighting. It's a fight to the death with your own ego, and it takes practice. It takes training. Just like preparing for any other a boxing fight. The ego has to be constantly suppressed. We have to be constantly aware that it rules our lives. And of course the ego is very attached to beliefs, because that's who we are. That defines our persona. And that's what the ego likes. So these words are true for people in general, as a collective hive mind, and for the individual. First, we ignore these things that we don't want to think about. We ignore the things that appear on the surface to be irrelevant to us, have nothing to do with us. And then we laugh at them. And then we fight. We fight with our egos. We fight internally. So the winning is not the only thing that gets bruised in the fight is the ego. And winning for a flat earther or a truth seeker, when someone else gives up the fight, is not this celebration of winning because you knocked out your opponent or you outsmarted them. You win because they are free. You freed a mind. You know, in Thailand they have this thing where you can go to the temple and you can release birds that have been captured. This is something that's done. This is prevalent throughout the kind of Buddhist culture, as it were, to release animals into the wild, whether it's fish or birds, is a way of making merit. Now, of course, you can look at that and think, well, the thing is, these animals had to be captured to start with. So there is some irony there. There is some conflict there. And so you can argue that setting them free only justifies the person who captured them to go and do it again. And again, this is just a tradition that's become a bit of a touristy thing in some ways, but essentially it's from this fundamental understanding that setting a soul free is the mission. It builds merit. So of course, if you seek to make merit in a way that's not that's contrived, then of course that doesn't give you merit. It has to be with all your heart and a spur of the moment thing, I suppose. So these things can very easily be taken out of context, and you can very easily argue against what's right or wrong with an action or something like that. But fundamentally, to free someone from the constraints of entrapment, slavery, is meritorious. So even though the flat earther fights back and things get ugly and the ego comes back to fight against the anti-flat earther, at the root of this is not a desire to win and say nah 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 nah. It's a desire to win for all humankind, to win so that we can move forwards, to overcome these ideas that are holding us back. We're looking up into the stars, and our desire to explore the human spirit, to test the limits, is being directed to these intangible objects in the sky, and we're being fooled into believing that we can one day go to Mars, because we've already been to the moon, haven't we? And this is just a distraction, a huge distraction from what might possibly be our purpose. Of course, people will fight as well to defend this idea that there is no purpose. It's all some accident. There is no intelligent design. And to hear that is just that's ridiculous, because it's obvious that there is intelligent design. Who or what the designer is, nobody knows, and why, but there is clearly a reason for this place that we find ourselves in. And at the moment, we seem to be completely unaware of the reason. We certainly don't know what happens when we pass on from this physical existence. This is obviously a mystery that may be an everlasting, perpetual mystery. Who knows? Maybe we'll never know. But to spend our lives denying the idea that there may be a purpose is nothing more than a demonstration of fear. So we see, as these events unfold, that it is fear. It is the ego's fear of being defeated that we see. This is what the flat earther sees happening in these anti-flat earthers, because we went through it ourselves. Just think back to when you're at school, and you might have been in a class or a lecture or whatever. The teacher says, "Any questions?" And instantly you might have a question, but you probably won't put your hand up. You want someone else to ask that question. You don't want to put your hand up. We feel the fear, we get clammy hands, we feel the adrenaline. We don't want to stand out as being the one who might look stupid because maybe they gave us the answer already and we didn't hear it, we didn't listen, or we're too stupid to understand it. But the thing is, everyone feels exactly the same. So the teacher says, any questions? And nobody puts their hand up because they're all feeling the same. Just like you and me. They're scared. Scared to stand out. Scared to look stupid. Scared of being laughed at. And that's just the ego. It's just the ego. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Because what do we really know about any of this? Nothing. We know nothing. But of course we are raised in a culture where we think we have all the answers. Or we appeal to the authority that appears to have all the answers. There is no authority, whether it's a priest, a corporate head, a politician. No one is an authority on who we are and why we're here, how it all began. No one. I mean, we have people telling us that the moon arrived 4 billion years ago. Or it was a chunk of the earth the earth smashed into something else and a piece fell off and the moon ended. I mean, come on. Why does something like that become a fact? Why does something like the sun is 93 billion miles away become a fact? Oh, everyone knows that. Or everyone knows at least that the sun's very far away. It's much, much bigger than us and the moon. But isn't it funny how a few times a year the sun and the moon will line up and they appear to be exactly the same size? Nah, just a coincidence. We're taught to ignore these things. Over what? Over so-called facts. And of course that's it. Anyone who if you look into the flat earth or the globe earth, the first thing a lot of us do is we look at the sun. It seems to be that the shape of the earth was decided by looking at the sun. Eratosthenes and these other experiments and things, and it's been a fact since then, since these mathematicians of old looked up in the sky and decided that's because the earth is a sphere. And then it just becomes general knowledge. So, to all you anti-flat earthers out there, while you do your thing to ridicule and fight the flat earth, we're just waiting for you to get it, and you'll go through those questions, you'll go through those things, and you'll start to realize that at the very, very least, anyone with discernment or the ability to look at this objectively will come to the realization that what we see in the sky can be interpreted in many, many ways. Whether it's a globe Earth, a geostationary globe, a concave Earth, or flat, but even hollow Earth, whatever. But flat Earth is, it seems to be the one that eventually makes the most sense. In so many ways. So we have all these anti-flat earthers for a while now, at least a year, ignoring and ridiculing and now fighting, but have they done anything scientific? Have they done any kind of exploration? Have they done any tests? Are they ignoring these people that go out and find that we can see further than we should be able to? A few years ago, people were doing moonlight tests. We found out that moonlight is in fact colder than moonshade. We find out that we can see further than we should be able to on a globe. We find out that horizons are not curvature. We find out that there are many, many compartmentalized explanations for perceiving the world as a globe, spinning through space. But there is no proof. None. None whatsoever, apart from this shoddy evidence we are provided from very dubious sources claiming that space travel is being done. And you can, you see these people who believe that they're sending craft to space. They might well believe it. They're not necessarily lying. They believe it. And you just have to look at the way the whole thing works. NASA, for example, or a space agency gets a budget from the government, which is funded by the taxpayer. And then they put out this bidding. Okay, we're going to send a probe to Mars, so they ask people to bid. So you've got little groups of people who, maybe engineers and what have you, or students, and they club together and they pitch their idea. Okay, we got this, we're going to put this rover up there with a drill on it, and it's going to have a scoop and this and that and a parachute. And NASA says, okay, you've got the contract. And this small group of people are literally over the moon because they got a contract. Yeah, so it means the next 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 years, they have a salary, they have something to do, they have to build a machine, they start from scratch, and they're going to do it with a huge amount of passion. Their entire life is going to be dedicated to getting this, building a machine, sticking it in a rocket and sending it to Mars. They have no reason to question whether or not that what they're doing is actually going to excuse me. And no reason at all to question it. So they're not lying. They believe it. They're getting paid. They're doing something that they're driven to do. and they believe that they are doing something to advance humanity. So we have good people, and their drive, their passion is misplaced, misdirected into this dream of reaching the stars. And all down the line, people are making huge amounts of money off it. For the military-industrial complex, and they might find out a few things. They might invent a few things. Bet your life if they probably sign non-disclosure agreements, and they probably within their contracts are clauses such as, if you invent a tool to do a specific job, then that becomes a property of the agency. Yeah, I mean, you find that in all walks of life. I remember working for a furniture installation company, and that was part of the contract. If you come up with an idea or a tool that makes the job more efficient, then that becomes the property of the company. You're not allowed to take it with you. This is just the corporate world. That's how it works. And that's what globalization is, isn't it? It's corporations. It's a world run by corporations. And of course, it's very difficult for us to imagine or perceive that it could be any different. But isn't it funny? You go and have a look at for example, go and have a look at Forbes' top 10 most lucrative industries. I can't remember offhand, but I think number 1 is financial services, and this basically the services that you have to pay for in order to pay your taxes. These companies that do this for you, are the most lucrative. And then, of course, you have property services, medical services, education. These are among the top 10 most lucrative industries in the world, when really these should be the things that are provided absolutely free by governments to their people. Health care. And not pharmaceuticals and chemical things, but proper nutrition and health care. But no, it's completely the opposite way around. You've got herbal remedies being banned and replaced by chemical dependency from doctors. And again, we have traditional treatments like that ridiculed and fought against by those who wish to have power over the people. So you see this everywhere, and of course a trait you'll see amongst the anti-flat earthers is that they want to, they'll say that anti-vaxxers are, they should be gotten rid of. These people are bigots. They really are bigots, yeah, because they think their worldview that's been programmed into them is how everything should be. They don't want others upsetting their worldview. It's actually very selfish. So yeah, you anti-flat earthers and you whatever, all you people who can't refuse to even contemplate where someone with a new idea is coming from, you're bigots, and we see you for what you are, and we're just waiting to see if, it is a big if, and when you will get it. Some people will. Some people won't. As I said, they'll go to their graves. Some people will. You look at how many people get cancer. I'm talking from personal experience here too. Someone gets cancer, and within 48 hours, the doctor is shooting poison into their veins. It's costing them an arm and a leg, and it eventually costs them their life. They're told, oh, you only have 6 months to live, but we'll make it as comfortable as possible for you by filling you with poison and then a load of other medicine to numb the pain. But how many of these people who get cancer or are diagnosed with cancer will then actually seek out alternatives? How many of those people will literally go to the grave ignoring the alternative treatments out there, laughing at the idea that other ways of treating cancer are viable, and fighting the people trying to tell them that they could survive cancer if they just looked into some of the alternatives rather than what the doctor. But no, they appeal to authority, and they will die at the hand of authority. And the authority is protected, doesn't care, moves on to the next patient, dishing out 6 month life sentences. And do they tell you how or why someone gets cancer? Nope, they can't. So they apparently have all these cures that will kill you, but they don't know how and why cancer came about in the first place. The lifestyle that person was leading. And that person who gets cancer will probably not look at their lifestyle. They will just look at the doctor to fix them. They won't look at their own lifestyle, or even that they would fear changing their lifestyle more than they fear death. They would rather accept that they will die within a few months than face up to the cause of their cancer and do something about it. So maybe we'll see this anti-flat earth narrative and the globalization of our minds and humanity continue for a long, long time. Simply because it's human nature to ignore, laugh, and fight anything and everything that goes against our comfortably numb lifestyles. Thank you very much.